Keep the damn ring, he spat, knuckles white around the sapphire. Like it mattered to him. He could buy a dozen more like it without blinking. I just wanted him to see what he'd lost. The woman's voice, usually a soft melody, cracked with a venom that surprised even Anna. That ring? It wasn't about the money, never was. It was about the promise etched into its band. A promise her husband had broken the day he walked out. A promise that Anna, with her quiet act of honesty, was now inexplicably tied to. They think they're punishing a thief. They have no idea how her quiet kindness will change everything. Little did she know that single act of integrity was about to unlock a future more extraordinary than any jewel could buy. The digital clock on the industrial coffee machine at the Mariner's Rest glowed a defiant 11:58 p.m. Anna Petrova ran a tired hand through her already disheveled brown hair, the strands sticking to her forehead in the humid late spring air. 2 more minutes. 2 more minutes, and she could finally peel off her starched, slightly too tight uniform, soak her protesting feet, and maybe, just maybe, get more than 5 hours of sleep before her morning shift started all over again. The restaurant, usually a cacophony of clinking cutlery, boisterous laughter, and the sizzle of fresh seafood, was now hushed. Only the hum of the refrigerators and the distant clatter of pots from the kitchen, where Carlos was performing his nightly deep clean, broke the silence. Most of the chairs were already inverted atop the tables, their legs pointing accusingly at the ceiling. Anna was on her final sweep, checking for forgotten belongings, stray crumbs, and the general detritus of a busy dinner service. Table 7, a cozy corner booth with a view of the rain-sick street outside, was her last stop. It had been occupied earlier by a woman who radiated an aura of quiet opulence. Her clothes were simple, but impeccably tailored. Her silver hair coiffed perfectly, and her voice, when she'd ordered her sol muner and a glass of sire, was soft but firm. Anna remembered her because she'd left a surprisingly generous tip, a crisp $50 bill for a modest meal tucked discreetly under her saucer. The woman hadn't said much, mostly just observed the restaurant with keen, intelligent eyes. Anna bent down to wipe the polished mahogany surface, her movements economical, born of years of repetition. Her gaze caught on something nestled deep in the plush velvet crevice of the booth seat, a small dark blue velvet box. Her heart gave an odd little flutter. Lost property wasn't uncommon. A forgotten scarf, a dropped glove, occasionally a mobile phone. But a velvet box usually meant one thing. Her fingers, calloused from carrying heavy trays, fumbled slightly as she picked it up. It was heavier than it looked, the velvet nap soft and expensive beneath her touch. There was no name, no monogram, just the box. With a quick glance toward the kitchen to ensure Carlos was still occupied, Anna's curiosity overcame her. She pressed the tiny gold clasp. The lid sprang open with a muted click. Inside, nestled on a bed of pristine white satin, lay a ring. Anna wasn't a jewelry expert. The most valuable thing she owned was a silver locket her grandmother had given her. But even to her untrained eye, this was no ordinary trinket. A colossal sapphire, the color of a twilight sky, sat at its center, surrounded by a halo of what could only be diamonds. They weren't just sparkling. They seemed to capture and refract the dim ambient light of the restaurant, throwing tiny rainbows onto the satin lining. The setting was intricate gold, or perhaps platinum, with delicate filigree work that spoke of master craftsmanship. It looked old, important, and undeniably, breathtakingly expensive. Anna felt her breath catch in her throat. The air suddenly felt thick, charged. She snapped the box shut, her heart hammering against her ribs like a trapped bird. Her first thought was a jumble of panic and awe. This ring, this could solve so many problems. Her mother's mounting medical bills, the overdue rent notice tucked inside her worn purse, the ancient laptop that wheezed and died every time she tried to work on her online accounting course. The thought was an insidious whisper coiling around her weary mind. Who would know the woman was a tourist perhaps, or just passing through? She hadn't left a name or number for the booking. Anna clutched the box tightly, the velvet imprinting itself on her palm. She looked around the empty restaurant again, the upside-down chairs like silent judging sentinels. The rain lashed against the windows, mirroring the sudden storm of conflict within her. This was the kind of find people fantasized about the stuff of movies. A lottery ticket dropped at her feet. Her shift was officially over. The clock now read 12:03 a.m. Carlos emerged from the kitchen, wiping his hands on his apron. "All clear, Anna?" he asked, his voice echoing slightly in the cavernous space. Anna quickly slipped the box into her apron pocket, the weight of it a sudden tangible burden. "All clear, Carlos," she managed her voice, sounding remarkably normal, even to her own ears. "Just finished table 7. "Good. Lock up behind me, will you?" "I'm beat." "Will do. Get home safe." As Carlos disappeared out the back, Anna pulled the box out again, opening it for another look under the slightly brighter light of the service station. The ring was even more spectacular up close. She noticed a tiny, almost invisible inscription on the inside of the band, but the script was too small and ornate to decipher in the dim light. She saw something else too, printed in minuscule gold lettering on the satin underside of the lid. Cartier. The name hit her like a physical blow. Cartier. Even she knew that name. It screamed unimaginable wealth. This wasn't just an expensive ring, it was a treasure. The weight in her apron pocket suddenly felt like a lead ingot pulling her down. The insidious whisper of temptation grew louder, painting vivid pictures of debt erased, of her mother's relieved smile, of a life without the constant gnawing anxiety of making ends meet. But then another image surfaced, her grandmother's face, stern but loving, instilling in her the simple, unwavering values of honesty and integrity. "Your actions are your signature, Anna," she used to say. "Make sure it's one you're proud of." With a sigh that seemed to carry the weight of the world, Anna closed the box. The dream of easy money, as seductive as it was, began to curdle, replaced by a dull ache of responsibility. She couldn't keep it. It wouldn't be right. It wouldn't be her. She carefully placed the velvet box in the restaurant's small battered safe, a place usually reserved for the day's modest float in any more valuable lost items. She made a note in the logbook: June 3rd, approx 9:30 p.m. Small blue velvet Cartier box with sapphire and diamond ring found in booth 7. Occupant, silver-haired lady, approx 60s, 70s. She added her name and the date. Locking the safe felt like closing a door on a life-altering possibility. As she finally stepped out into the rainy night, her cheap umbrella struggling against the wind, Anna Petrova felt an odd mixture of regret and a profound, if we sense, of righteousness. The allure of the ring was undeniable, but the peace of a clear conscience she hoped would be worth more. She just didn't know how much more. The walk to her small apartment, usually a 10-minute reprieve, where Anna would mentally decompress, felt like an eternity. Every raindrop seemed to echo the word Cartier. Every darkened storefront window reflected her own conflicted face. The ring, safely locked away, still occupied a significant portion of her thoughts, its image seared into her mind's eye. The deep, mesmerizing blue of the sapphire, the cold fire of the diamonds. Her apartment was a tiny one-bedroom on the 4th floor of a walk-up building that had seen better decades. The scent of damp plaster and her neighbor, Mrs. Henderson's overly enthusiastic cabbage soup, usually greeted her. Tonight she barely noticed. She bypassed the kitchen, her stomach too tight for even a glass of water. Her mother, Elelanina, was asleep in the small bedroom, her breathing soft and slightly raspy, a constant reminder of the medical bills stacked neatly, ominously on the little desk in the corner of the living room. Elena's illness, a chronic respiratory condition, had slowly chipped away at their savings, then at Anna's meager income. The accounting course was supposed to be her way out, a path to a better-paying job, a more stable future. But finding the time and energy to study after grueling shifts was a battle she often lost. Anna sank onto the lumpy sofa, the springs groaning in protest. She replayed the evening in her head, the woman at table 7, her calm demeanor, the way she'd sipped her wine, her observant gaze. Had she realized the ring was missing yet? Was she frantic? Or was she so wealthy that such a loss was a mere inconvenience quickly replaced? The thought brought a fresh wave of temptation. If the owner didn't care, why should Anna bear the burden of such scrupulous honesty? She pulled out her phone. The screen cracked in one corner. She opened her banking app. The balance stared back at her, a paltry three-digit number that had to stretch for another week. A notification popped up. Rent payment of $850 is due in 2 days. Her stomach clenched. The ring could have wiped that out, and her mother's upcoming specialist appointment and the overdue electricity bill, and still leave enough for what? For breathing room, for a single moment of not worrying. But the image of her grandmother's steadfast gaze returned a silent rebuke, and alongside it a different kind of worry. What if keeping it brought more trouble than it solved? A ring like that wasn't something you could just sell at a pawn shop without raising eyebrows. It was probably insured, perhaps even registered. The fleeting fantasy of a life transformed by sudden wealth was quickly overshadowed by the more realistic prospect of getting caught, of facing consequences far worse than her current struggles. The shame, the disappointment in her mother's eyes. She imagined the rich woman's distress. Perhaps the ring was a family heirloom, sentimental beyond its monetary value. Anna knew what it was like to cherish something for its connection to a loved one. Her grandmother's locket was proof of that. How would she feel if she lost it? No, her decision had been the right one, the only one. Yet sleep eluded her. She tossed and turned, the cheap sheets tangling around her legs. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw the ring winking at her from the darkness. She saw the numbers on the bills, the worry lines on her mother's sleeping face. Honesty felt heavy tonight, a cold comfort that didn't pay the rent or soothe her mother's cough. Around 3 a.m., she finally gave up on sleep. She padded quietly to the small kitchen, making herself a cup of chamomile tea, its warmth, a small solace in her chilled hands. She sat at the rickety kitchen table, the overdue bills a silent accusation in the dim light filtering in from the street lamp outside. The accounting textbook lay open where she'd left it days ago. A chapter on ethical considerations in financial reporting. Bookmarked. Anna stared at the title, a bitter laugh escaping her lips. Ethics. It was easy to preach ethics in a textbook. It was a different beast altogether when faced with a life-altering temptation wrapped in blue velvet. She thought about Marco, one of the senior waiters at the Mariner's Rest. He was cynical, world-weary, and always had a scheme for making a quick buck. If Marco had found that ring Anna knew, without a doubt, it would be long gone, already fenced, or on its way to an unscrupulous buyer. Finders, keepers, losers, weepers, darling, he'd say with a wink. The world doesn't reward saints. Was he right? Was her honesty just naive? Was she a fool for even hesitating? But as the first gray light of dawn began to creep through the grimy window, a fragile sense of peace settled over Anna. It wasn't the triumphant peace of a hero, but the quiet, weary peace of someone who had wrestled with their conscience, and for better or worse, chosen the harder path. She would go to work. She would wait to see if the woman returned, and if not, she would inform Mr. Henderson, the restaurant owner, and let him deal with it. The responsibility, at least, would then be shared. She dressed for her morning shift, the movement stiff from lack of sleep. Her reflection in the cracked bathroom mirror looked pale and shadowed. But her eyes, though tired, were clear. She had made her choice. Now she just had to live with it, whatever the outcome. The weight of honesty was still there, but it no longer felt quite so crushing. It felt right, and in her world, feeling right was a luxury she rarely afforded herself. The morning rush at the Mariner's Rest was a predictable frenzy of caffeine-starved office workers, early bird tourists, and regulars who barely needed to state their orders. Anna moved through it with practiced efficiency, her personal turmoil carefully masked by a professional smile and prompt service. Every time the bell above the door jingled, her head would snap up, a knot of anticipation tightening in her stomach. Would it be her, the silver-haired woman from Table 7, Mr. Henderson, a portly man with a perpetually worried expression and a comb over that defied gravity, arrived around 900 a.m. Anna, after a particularly demanding table of 6 finally settled their bill, approached him discreetly. "Mr. Henderson, can I have a word in the office?" His eyebrows shot up. "Trouble, Anna?" "No, not exactly. Something was found last night. Something valuable." In the cramped, paper-strewn office, Anna recounted the story, her voice low and even. She retrieved the velvet box from the safe and placed it on Mr. Henderson's cluttered desk. He stared at it, then at her, then back at the box. Slowly he reached out and opened it. His eyes widened, and a low whistle escaped his lips. Good heavens, Anna. This is quite something. He picked up the ring, his thick fingers clumsy against its delicate structure. Cartier, you said. He squinted at the inscription inside the lid. Indeed. Well, I'll be. He looked at Anna, a new respect dawning in his eyes. You found this and you logged it straight away. Yes, sir. Last night just after closing. And you didn't? He trailed off, but the implication was clear. Anna met his gaze squarely. No, sir. It's not mine to keep. Mr. Henderson let out a breath. You're a good woman, Anna. A very good woman. There are people who would. Well, never mind. He cleared his throat. Right. We wait. The owner will surely realize it's missing and call or come back. This isn't the sort of thing one misplaces lightly. He paused. Did she leave any contact details with her reservation? I checked the book this morning. It was a walk-in. No name, no number. Typical, he sighed, though his gaze kept straying back to the glittering jewel. All right, we keep it in the safe. If no one claims it within, say, a week, we'll have to take it to the police. Standard procedure for high-value items. He looked at Anna again. Thank you. Seriously, this could have been a real headache if it had disappeared. The day wore on. Lunch service was a blur. Anna kept scanning the faces of incoming patrons. But the elegant, silver-haired woman did not appear. With each passing hour, a strange sense of anticlimax settled over her. She had done the right thing, faced temptation. And what now? Nothing, it seemed. Just another day of serving chowder and fish and chips. Marco, noticing her distracted air, sidled up to her during a lull. What's with you today, Petrova? You look like you've seen a ghost or lost a winning lottery ticket. Just tired, Anna mumbled, avoiding his gaze. Sure, tired, he smirked. If you ever find that winning ticket, remember your old pal Marco, eh? Just as the lunch rush was tapering off around 2:30 p.m., the bell above the door jingled. Anna was wiping down a table, her back to the entrance. Excuse me, a soft, cultured voice. Anna turned and her breath caught. It was her, the woman from table 7. She looked just as composed as the night before, perhaps a shade paler, her gloved hands clutching a small leather handbag a little too tightly. Yes, ma'am. Welcome back, Anna said, trying to keep her voice even. The women's keen eyes scanned Anna's face. I believe I may have left something here last night in the booth by the window. Her voice was calm, but there was an underlying tremor of anxiety. One moment, ma'am, Anna said. She quickly found Mr. Henderson, who was tallying receipts in his office. She's here, the lady who lost the ring. Mr. Henderson bustled out, a mixture of relief and nervousness on his face. Madam, you're back. We were hoping you'd return. The woman focused on him. I seem to have misplaced rather personal item. Yes, indeed. One of my staff found a small velvet box last night. If you could perhaps describe the contents, Mr. Henderson asked, a touch of anxiousness creeping into his tone. The woman's posture relaxed ever so slightly. It's a dark blue velvet box. Inside there is a sapphire and diamond ring, a vintage piece. That matches the description perfectly, Mr. Henderson announced, beaming as if he'd found it himself. He turned to Anna. Anna, perhaps you would do the honors. Anna nodded, retrieved the box from the safe, and brought it to the woman. As she handed it over, their eyes met. The woman's gaze was intense, searching. Anna simply offered a small, polite smile. With slightly trembling fingers, the woman opened the box. A soft gasp escaped her lips as she saw the ring, safe and sound. She picked it up, turning it over in her gloved fingers, her relief palpable. Oh, thank heavens, she murmured more to herself than to them. She looked up first at Mr. Henderson, then her gaze settled firmly on Anna. You found this? Yes, ma'am, Anna said, when I was clearing your table after you left. The woman was silent for a long moment, her eyes scrutinizing Anna. Anna felt a flush creep up her neck. It wasn't an unkind gaze, but it was unnervingly perceptive. I see, the woman said finally. She slipped the ring onto her finger, where it sat with an air of belonging, a perfect fit. She then reached into her handbag and pulled out a wallet. Anna's heart did a little jump. Was this it? A reward? Even a small one would be a godsend. The woman extracted two crisp $100 bills. She offered them to Anna. Thank you, young lady, for your honesty. Anna looked at the money, then at the woman. $200, it was a generous amount, more than she usually made in a day's tips. It would cover the electricity bill and a little more. But after the turmoil of the previous night, after the sheer breathtaking value of what she had returned, it felt anticlimactic, almost dismissive. Still, it was something. Thank you, ma'am, Anna said, accepting the money. I'm glad it's safely back with you. Mr. Henderson was beaming. Excellent. All's well that ends well. So glad we could be of service, madam. The woman nodded curtly at him, then gave Anna one last lingering look. It was an odd look, one Anna couldn't quite decipher. Not just gratitude, but something else. Calculation, assessment. Then with a slight inclination of her head, she turned and walked out of the Mariner's Rest, the bell jingling softly behind her. Anna stared at the $200 in her hand. Marco, who had been unabashedly watching the entire exchange from the service station, sauntered over. Well, 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 he drawled, eyeing the cash. $20 for a ring is probably worth more than this whole damn restaurant. See, honesty pays, but not as much as a good fence, eh? He winked and walked off, chuckling to himself. Anna felt a strange hollowness. It wasn't a disappointment exactly. She hadn't returned the ring for a reward, but the woman's understated reaction, the almost perfunctory thanks, left her feeling oddly deflated. The grand drama of her internal struggle had culminated in this brief, almost businesslike transaction. She tucked the money into her pocket. It was still a help. It was still the right thing to do. But as she went back to wiping tables, the image of the women's final assessing gaze lingered in her mind, stirring an uneasy feeling she couldn't quite name. The story she sensed might not be entirely over. Life at the Mariner's Rest settled back into its usual rhythm. Anna used the $200 to pay the overdue electricity bill and buy a slightly better cut of meat for her mother's dinner. The incident of the ring began to fade into the background of her daily grind, a strange, glittering interlude in an otherwise monotonous existence. She diligently attended her online accounting classes in the slivers of free time she could find the dream of a better future. Still a distant, flickering light. A little over a week had passed since the ring's return. It was a gray, drizzly afternoon, the kind that usually meant a slow trickle of customers seeking refuge in warm soup. Anna was polishing cutlery at the service station, half listening to Marco complain about his latest disastrous blind date, when the bell above the restaurant door chimed. A man stepped inside. He was the sort of man who didn't just enter a room, but seemed to command it with his mere presence. He was tall, impeccably dressed in a charcoal gray suit that whispered of Savile Row with a crisp white shirt and a subtly patterned silk tie. His dark hair was neatly combed, and his features were sharp, intelligent, his expression unreadable. He carried a slim, expensive-looking leather briefcase. He looked utterly out of place in the humble, slightly worn surroundings of the Mariner's Rest. He didn't look at the menu board or scan the empty tables. His gaze, cool and direct, swept the room until it landed on Anna. He moved towards her with a quiet confidence that was almost unnerving. "Miss Anna Petrova," he asked. His voice was deep, resonant, with a precise, almost formal cadence. Anna's heart gave a sudden, anxious thump. How did he know her name? "Yes," she replied, wiping her suddenly damp palms on her apron. Marco fell silent, his eyes wide with curiosity. "My name is Alistair Finch," the man said, offering a slight inclination of his head, but no handshake. "I represent Mrs. Elena Ainsworth." "Answorth?" The name clicked. The silver-haired woman. The ring. Anna's unease intensified. Has something gone wrong? Was the ring a fake? Had she been accused of something? "Mrs. Ainsworth?" Anna repeated, her voice a little shaky. "Is everything all right?" Mr. Finch's expression remained neutral. "Mrs. Ainsworth is quite well. Thank you. She has asked me to convey her sincere apologies for the somewhat abrupt nature of her gratitude when she retrieved her property last week. She was rather preoccupied at the time." "Oh," Anna said, feeling a little foolish. "There's no need to apologize. I was just glad she got her ring back." Indeed, Mr. Finch said. Mrs. Ainsworth is a woman who values integrity, Miss Petrova, greatly. She also believes that such integrity should be appropriately acknowledged. He placed his briefcase on the small counter of the service station, the clasps clicking open with metallic precision. From within, he withdrew not documents but a small, slim box. It was matte black, impossibly sleek, with no markings whatsoever. He slid it across the counter towards Anna. Mrs. Ainsworth asked me to give you this as a more substantial token of her appreciation. Anna stared at the black box. It was elegant, understated, and exuded an aura of exclusivity that made the Cartier box seem almost flamboyant by comparison. She looked up at Mr. Finch, bewildered. I don't understand. She already gave me $200. That was very generous. A hint of a touched Mr. Finch's lips, a fleeting, almost imperceptible expression. Mrs. Ainsworth operates on a different scale of generosity. Miss Petrova, please open it. Her fingers trembled as she reached for the box. It felt cool and smooth beneath her touch. She lifted the lid. Inside, nestled on a bed of black velvet, lay a single card. It was also matte black, made of what felt like heavy-gauge metal or a dense high-tech polymer. There were numbers embossed on it and her name, Anna Petrova, in elegant silver lettering. No bank name, no Visa or MasterCard logo, just a symbol in one corner, a stylized, almost abstract bird in flight. What? What is this? She whispered, her voice barely audible. Marco was now openly gaping over her shoulder. That, Miss Petrova, Mr. Finch said, his voice imbued with a quiet significance, is an Aegis black card. It is an invitation on-charge card with, for all practical purposes, no preset spending limit. It is accepted worldwide. The annual fees are of course taken care of by Mrs. Ainsworth. It is now yours. Anna felt the blood drain from her face. No spending limit. Her mind reeled, unable to process the information. This had to be some kind of elaborate joke, a prank. But Mr. Finch's serious demeanor, the sheer palpable expense of the card itself, argued otherwise. No, I can't accept this, she stammered, pushing the box back towards him. This is too much. It's insane. Mr. Finch did not move to take it. Mrs. Ainsworth was quite insistent. She believes in rewarding exceptional characters, Miss Petrova, and your actions in returning an item of considerable financial and sentimental value without hesitation demonstrated such character. But why? Anna felt completely overwhelmed. It was just the right thing to do. Anyone would have done it. You would be surprised, Miss Petrova, how few people, when faced with such temptation, choose the right thing to do so unequivocally. Mr. Finch stated, his gaze unwavering. Mrs. Ainsworth has encountered her share of disappointments in that regard. Your honesty was to her a refreshing and significant discovery. Marco finally found his voice. No limit, he breathed, his eyes practically bulging out of his head. Lady, you hit the jackpot. Take it. Anna ignored him, her gaze locked with Mr. Finch's. There must be some mistake or a catch. Cards like this, they don't just get handed out to waitresses. The words tumbled out, laced with disbelief, and a dawning, terrifying sense of a world shifting beneath her feet. There is no mistake, Miss Petrova, and no catch in the conventional sense, Mr. Finch assured her. The card is active. You may use it as you see fit. Mrs. Ainsworth's only stipulation, if you can call it that, is that you use it wisely, perhaps to alleviate some of the burdens you clearly carry, and perhaps to explore avenues that were previously closed to you. He paused, then added, She also mentioned that you are studying accounting, a commendable pursuit. Perhaps this will allow you to focus more on your studies, or even consider a more prestigious institution, if you so desire. How did Mrs. Ainsworth know she was studying accounting? As Anna mentioned it, she couldn't recall. The woman had only been in the restaurant for an hour or so. Had she been investigated? The thought sent a shiver down her spine. How does she know about my studies? Anna asked, her voice tight. Mrs. Ainsworth is a woman of considerable resources and connections, Miss Petrova. When something or someone piques her interest, she is thorough in her inquiries, Mr. Finch said smoothly, offering no further explanation. She was impressed not only by your honesty, but also by your diligence in seeking to improve your circumstances through education while working a demanding job. Anna felt a wave of dizziness. This was too much, too fast. A black card, no limit. A mysterious benefactor who apparently knew details about her life. It felt like she had stumbled into a dream or perhaps a very strange high-stakes reality show. I need to think, she said, her hand resting on the box, a strange tingling sensation on her fingertips, as if the card itself hummed with latent power. Of course, Mr. Finch said, finally retrieving his briefcase. The card is yours. There is a small pamphlet in the box with a dedicated concierge number should you have any questions regarding its use. They are available 24/7. He gave another slight inclination of his head. Mrs. Ainsworth may be in touch at a later date. Until then, she wishes you well. And with that, he turned and walked out of the Mariner's Rest as quietly and commandingly as he had entered, leaving behind a stunned waitress, a gobsmacked colleague, and a small matte black box that held the promise of an utterly transformed life. Anna stared at the card. Anna Petrova, her name on this impossible object. Marco let out a long, low whistle. Petrova, he said, his voice filled with awe. You are officially in a different league. What in God's name are you going to do? Anna didn't answer. She didn't have the faintest idea. She picked up the card. It felt cool, solid, real, too real. Her life, which had been a predictable landscape of hard work and small anxieties, had just been hit by a meteorite of unimaginable wealth and bewildering possibility, and she had a terrifying, exhilarating feeling that nothing would ever be the same again. The days that followed Mr. the Finch's visit were a blur of disbelief, anxiety, and a dizzying sense of unreality for Anna. The Aegis black card sat in its box, hidden at the bottom of her lingerie drawer beneath a pile of worn-out socks. She took it out at least a dozen times a day, just to stare at it, to feel its impossible weight, half expecting it to vanish like a dream upon waking. She hadn't told her mother. How could she? How could she explain something so outlandish? Mama, a rich lady? I returned a ring to give me a credit card with no limit. It sounded like the ramblings of a lunatic. At work, Marco treated her with a newfound reverence mixed with a barely concealed envy. Bought anything yet, Richie Rich? He'd teased. A yacht, a small island. Anna would just shake her head, offering a weak smile. The thought of actually using the card filled her with a paralyzing fear. What if it was a trick? What if it suddenly stopped working, leaving her with an astronomical bill she could never repay? What if Mrs. Ainsworth was some eccentric billionaire playing a cruel game? But the bills kept coming. Her mother had a bad cough that week, and the doctor suggested a new expensive inhaler. The rent was due again. The pressure mounted a familiar vice tightening around Anna's chest. One particularly bleak evening, after a grueling double shift, Anna sat at her kitchen table, the pile of bills mocking her. Her mother was asleep, her breathing shallow. Anna pulled out the black box. The card gleamed dully in the dim light. Mrs. Ainsworth's only stipulation is that you use it wisely, perhaps to alleviate some of the burdens you clearly carry. Mr. Finch's words echoed in her mind. With trembling hands, she picked up her phone and, following the instructions on the small pamphlet, called the concierge number. A calm, professional voice answered immediately. Aegis Black Concierge. Good evening. How may I assist you, Ms. Petrova? They knew her name. Of course they did. I need to pay some bills, Anna stammered. Medical bills and rent. Can I do that with this card? Certainly, Ms. Petrova, the concierge replied smoothly. If you could provide me with the pay details and amounts, I can process those for you immediately. Hesitantly, Anna read out the information for her mother's outstanding doctor's fees, the pharmacy bill for the new inhaler, and her overdue rent. The total was just over $2,000, a fortune to her, an amount she would have taken months to pay off, if ever. There was a brief pause, the soft clicking of keys. All right, Miss Petrova, those have all been processed. The funds will reflect in their accounts within 1 to 2 business hours. Is there anything else I can assist you with this evening? Just like that. No questions asked, no demand for repayment terms. Anya felt a wave of light-headedness. No, no, thank you, that's all. She hung up her hand, shaking. Has it really been that easy? The next morning she checked online. The rent paid. She called the doctor's office account settled. The pharmacy confirmed payment for the inhaler. It was real. A vast, crushing weight lifted from her shoulders so suddenly that she almost felt like she was floating. She watched her mother using the new inhaler, her breathing already a little easier, and tears welled up in Anna's eyes. Tears of relief, of gratitude, of sheer, unadulterated shock. The card, she realized, wasn't a prank. It was a lifeline. Slowly, cautiously, Anna began to use it for other necessities. She replaced her dying laptop with a new efficient model that allowed her to actually complete her accounting assignments without crashing. She bought her mother a comfortable orthopedic mattress to help with her back pain. She even bought herself a new pair of sensible, supportive work shoes, her old ones practically falling apart. Each purchase was modest, carefully considered, tinged with a lingering disbelief. She didn't go on a wild spending spree. The thought still terrified her, but the constant gnawing anxiety that had been her companion for years began to recede. She could breathe. She could focus on her studies, her grades improved. A little color returned to her cheeks. The dark circles under her eyes began to fade. About a month after receiving the card, Mr. Finch contacted her again. Not in person this time, but via a politely worded email requesting a brief meeting. He suggested a quiet cafe in a more upscale part of town, far from the Mariner's Rest. Anna agreed, her stomach fluttering with nerves. She dressed neatly, but simply her best blouse and skirt. Mr. Finch was already there nursing an espresso. Miss Petrova, he greeted her, rising politely. Thank you for coming. Mrs. Ainsworth has been pleased to hear, via my discreet inquiries with the concierge service, that you have begun to utilize the resources made available to you. Anna flushed slightly. It's been a great help, Mr. Finch. I still can't quite believe it. Please convey my deepest gratitude to Mrs. Ainsworth. She's changed my life. Mrs. Ainsworth understands, he said, and that was her intention. However, the card was not solely intended for alleviating immediate financial burdens, as necessary as that was. He paused, his gaze direct. Mrs. Ainsworth is a great patron of potential, Miss Petrova. She believes that true wealth lies not in accumulation, but in cultivation. Cultivation of talent, of character, of possibility. Anna frowned. I'm not sure I follow. The ring you returned, Mr. Finch continued, was not merely an expensive piece of jewelry. It was a treasured heirloom given to Mrs. Ainsworth by her late husband, a renowned art historian and collector. He had an exceptional eye for beauty, not just in objects, but in people. He leaned forward slightly. When Mrs. Danworth learned of your unwavering honesty, and subsequently a little about your life, your struggles, your quiet diligence, she saw a resonance, a spark of something rare. A spark, Anna echoed, bewildered. Mrs. Ainsworth has a particular interest in fostering talent that might otherwise go unrecognized or unsupported. The Aegis card. Miss Petrova is more than just financial aid. It's an empowerment tool. She hopes you will use it not just to survive, but to thrive, to explore passions, to pursue education beyond your current scope, perhaps even to undertake ventures you might have only dreamed of. Anna's mind raced. Passions, ventures. She had been so focused on survival for so long, she'd almost forgotten what it felt like to have dreams beyond paying the next bill. There was one thing, though, a ghost of a long-abandoned interest. There was something I used to love, Anna said hesitantly, almost shyly. A long time ago, before my father passed and things got hard, I used to paint and sketch just for myself. Nothing serious. A flicker of interest in Mr. Finch's eyes. Indeed, painting. Yes, I even saved up for a proper set of oil paints once. But well, life happened. They're probably all dried up by now, tucked away in a cupboard somewhere. She hadn't thought about those paints in years. Mrs. Ainsworth herself is a keen amateur artist. Mr. Finch said, a surprising revelation. She believes artistic expression is vital. Perhaps this is an avenue you might consider exploring again. Art supplies, classes, workshops. The resources are now available to you should you choose to use them. He then slid a small embossed card across the table. It was an invitation. Mrs. Ainsworth hosts occasional small salons, gatherings of artists, writers, thinkers. She would be very pleased if you would attend the next one as her guest. It's quite informal, an opportunity to meet interesting people, perhaps find some inspiration. Anna stared at the invitation. A salon with artists and writers? It sounded like another world entirely, a world she couldn't possibly belong to. I wouldn't know what to say. I'm just a waitress. Mr. Finch's lips curved into that rare, subtle smile. You are Anna Petrova, Miss Petrova, a woman of proven integrity and perhaps untapped talents. That is all the qualification you need. Mrs. Ainsworth sees something in you. I am beginning to understand why. He stood. The salon is in 2 weeks. My contact details are on the card if you have any questions. I sincerely hope you will consider attending. Anna left the cafe in a daze. The black card wasn't just about money. It was about opportunity, about being seen, about potential someone else believed she had, even if she didn't believe it herself. That evening, for the first time in over a decade, Anna Petrova pulled out an old dusty box from the back of her closet. Inside, alongside dried-up tubes of paint, were old sketchbooks filled with surprisingly detailed drawings of cityscapes, portraits of her mother, and intricate floral patterns. A forgotten part of herself looked back at her from the faded pages, and for the first time she wondered if perhaps, just perhaps, Mrs. Ainsworth and Mr. Finch weren't entirely mistaken. The 2 weeks leading up to Mrs. Ainsworth's salon were a period of quiet transformation for Anna. Armed with the Aegis card and a burgeoning sense of timid curiosity, she visited a high-end art supply store. The sheer variety of paints, brushes, canvases, and papers was overwhelming, but also exhilarating. She bought a modest set of professional-grade acrylics, some quality brushes, and a few small canvases. The cashier barely blinked at the black card. Back in her small apartment after her mother was asleep, Anna would set up her new supplies on the rickety kitchen table. At first her hands felt clumsy, her mind blank. Years of disuse had stiffened her creative muscles, but slowly, hesitantly, the old familiarity returned. She started with simple, still lives, a bowl of fruit, a wilting flower in a glass. Then she moved on to sketching faces she saw on her commute, trying to capture their expressions. The intense focus required was a balm to her soul, a different kind of escape than her accounting studies. It was a conversation with herself, a rediscovery. She also bought a simple, elegant, dark blue dress for the salon, something appropriate that made her feel presentable without being ostentatious. The thought of attending still filled her with a mixture of excitement and trepidation. The day of the salon arrived. It was held at Mrs. Ainsworth's residence, a magnificent heritage townhouse in a leafy, exclusive neighborhood. Anna, feeling like an imposter, smoothed down her dress for the 10th time before ringing the bell. Mr. Finch himself opened the door, offering a warm, reassuring smile. Miss Petrova, welcome. Mrs. Ainsworth is very much looking forward to seeing you. The interior of the house was breathtaking, filled with art, antiques, and books. Yet it felt warm and inviting, not like a sterile museum. Soft classical music played, and the low hum of conversation drifted from a large, beautifully appointed drawing room. Nina Enworth detached herself from a small group and glided towards Anna, her silver hair gleaming, her eyes bright and welcoming. She was even more striking in her own home, exuding an effortless grace. Anna, my dear, she said, taking both of Anna's hands in her own. Her grip was surprisingly firm, her smile genuine. I am so very glad you came. Alistair has told me you've been rediscovering an old talent. Anya blushed. I've been trying, Mrs. Ainsworth. It's been a long time. Nonsense, my dear. Talent like that doesn't simply vanish, it merely sleeps. She gestured around the room. Come, let me introduce you to a few people. Don't be intimidated. They're all quite harmless, mostly. Her eyes twinkled. The evening was a revelation. Anna met a struggling playwright, a renowned sculptor, a young poet whose work she'd unknowingly admired in a small journal. They didn't ask her about her job or her background. They talked about ideas about art, about the struggles and joys of the creative process. To her surprise, Anna found herself contributing, sharing a tentative observation about a particular painting, discussing a technique she'd recently experimented with. Later, Mrs. Ainsworth drew Anna aside to acquire a corner, where a stunning portrait hung above the fireplace. It was of a kind-faced man with intelligent eyes. "My late husband, Charles," Mrs. Ainsworth said softly. "The ring you returned was his mother's engagement ring. He gave it to me on our first anniversary. It's irreplaceable." Her gaze on Anna was filled with a profound, gentle gratitude. Charles always said that the greatest works of art are not those found in galleries, but the acts of kindness and integrity that illuminate human character. "You, my dear, performed such an act." She then looked at Anna with a thoughtful expression. "Alice Dister mentioned you have a good head for figures with your accounting studies, and now this renewed interest in art." She smiled. "I happen to be on the board of a small foundation, the Charles Ainsworth Foundation for Emerging Artists. We provide grants, mentorship, but we also need meticulous, passionate people to help manage the administrative and financial side. Someone who understands both the pragmatism of numbers and the soul of art." Anna's heart leapt. "Mrs. Ainsworth, are you suggesting?" "I'm suggesting, my dear, that your honesty opened a door. The black card was to give you breathing room to explore. This," she gestured vaguely, encompassing the house, "the foundation, the future, is an invitation to step through it. If you wish, we need someone with your unique blend of skills and integrity. We could offer you a position starting part-time, perhaps to fit around your studies, if you wish to continue them, or full-time if you prefer. Decent salary, of course, and infinitely more fulfilling, I should imagine." Then she trailed off delicately. Then, serving fish and chips, Anna finished, a smile playing on her lips. Mrs. Ainsworth laughed, a delightful, melodious sound. "Precisely. Think about it, my dear. No pressure, but I have a feeling you might be exactly who we've been looking for." Anna looked around the room at the vibrant art, the passionate people, at the kind, perceptive woman before her. It was a world away from the Mariner's Rest, a world she never dreamed she could be a part of. The ring, the black card, they weren't just rewards. They were keys unlocking doors she didn't even know existed. And Mrs. Ainsworth wasn't just a rich woman, she was a fairy godmother, albeit a very practical and discerning one. The choice was clear. It was terrifying, exhilarating, and utterly wonderfully right. "Mrs. Ainsworth," Anna said, her voice clear and steady, a newfound confidence blooming within her. "I don't need to think about it. Yes, I would love to." A new chapter was beginning, one she couldn't have imagined in her wildest dreams. All because of a lost ring and an act of simple, unwavering honesty. The future was no longer a distant flickering light. It was a brightly lit path waiting to be explored. Anna's journey didn't end there. She embraced her new role at the foundation, her sharp mind for numbers proving invaluable, while her rediscovered passion for art gave her a unique understanding of the artists they supported. She continued to paint her work, slowly gaining recognition in small galleries. The Aegis Black Card, once a symbol of bewildering wealth, became a tool for quiet philanthropy, helping her support her mother comfortably and even fund small community art projects. Mrs. Ainsworth became a mentor and a cherished friend. Anna learned that true wealth wasn't about limitless spending, but limitless possibility and the power of human connection. Her life, once defined by struggle, was now a testament to the extraordinary ripple effects of a single honest choice. What do you think of Anna's incredible story? Could a simple act of honesty truly change a life so dramatically? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. If this story touched your heart or made you think, please give this video a thumbs up. Share it with your friends and don't forget to subscribe for more inspiring stories that explore the unexpected turns of life. Click that notification bell so you never miss an update.